Have you ever looked up at the night sky and wondered about our place in the universe? It's a question that has captivated humanity for thousands of years. But for centuries ago, asking that question out loud could cost you everything. This is the story of a man who dared to look, dared to question, and dared to believe the truth, even when the world told him he was wrong. This is the story of Galileo Galilei. Imagine Italy in the early 1600s. The world was a very different place. The accepted truth, enforced by the powerful church, was that the earth was the fixed center of the universe. The sun, the moon, the planets, and all the stars revolved around us in perfect, heavenly spheres. It was a comforting, human-centric view. But for a brilliant and endlessly curious scientist in Padua named Galileo, this explanation just didn't add up. Galileo wasn't just a thinker, he was a builder, an experimenter. He heard tales of a new invention from Holland, a spyglass that made distant objects appear closer. Intrigued, he didn't just buy one, he improved it. Dramatically. He crafted his own telescope, a device far more powerful than any that had come before. And one fateful night, he pointed it towards the heavens. What he saw would change the course of human history forever. First, he looked at the moon. For centuries, people believed it was a perfect, smooth sphere. But Galileo saw something else. He saw mountains casting long shadows, deep craters dotting its surface. It wasn't a perfect celestial orb. It was a world, much like our own Earth. This was a crack in the foundation of the old world view. Then he turned his telescope to Jupiter. He noticed something strange, for tiny points of light, like little stars, dancing around the giant planet. Night after night, he tracked their movements. They weren't fixed stars, they were moons orbiting Jupiter. This was a bombshell. If everything was supposed to orbit the Earth, what were these moons doing circling Jupiter? Here was clear, visible proof that not everything in the heavens revolved around us. His discoveries kept coming. He saw that Venus went through phases, just like our moon, something that could only happen if Venus orbited the sun, not the Earth. He peered into the hazy band of the Milky Way and saw that it was a celestial cloud, but was made up of countless individual stars, more than anyone had ever dreamed existed. The universe was suddenly infinitely larger, more complex, and more magnificent than the old model allowed. These observations provided powerful evidence for a controversial idea proposed by a Polish astronomer named Copernicus decades earlier, the heliocentric model. The idea that the Earth and other planets revolve around the sun. Galileo, with the evidence from his own eyes, became its most passionate and public champion. He wrote books, gave lectures, and shared his astonishing findings. He believed that if he could just show people what he had seen, they would have to accept the truth. But truth, especially a truth that challenges long-held power structures, is often not welcome. The leaders of the Catholic Church saw Galileo's work not as a scientific breakthrough, but as a dangerous heresy. It contradicted Scripture and threatened the Church's authority as the ultimate source of all knowledge. The idea that Earth was just another planet, spinning through space, was deeply unsettling to the established order. The warnings started quietly, then grew louder. Friends cautioned him to be careful. Church officials advised him to present the sun-centered model only as a hypothesis, a mathematical trick, not as a physical reality. They told him, the Earth is the center of the universe. Anyone who says otherwise is a heretic, but Galileo was a man of conviction. How could he deny what he had seen with his own eyes? He famously replied, I trust my eyes, I trust my telescope, and I trust the truth that the universe shows me. He believed that science and religion were not enemies, that God had given humanity to books, the book of Scripture and the book of nature. To understand nature, he argued, you had to observe it directly. His defiance culminated in the publication of his master work, Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems. In it, he presented the arguments for both the Earth-centered and sun-centered models, but he wrote it in a way that made the defender of the Church's view look foolish, while the proponent of the Copernican system was sharp, witty, and persuasive. This was seen as a direct insult to the Pope himself. The gloves were off. In 1633, the aging Galileo was summoned to Rome to face the Inquisition. Imagine the scene, a 70-year-old man, a giant of science, standing trial, threatened with torture for the crime of telling the truth about the cosmos. He was pressured, interrogated, and ultimately forced to make an impossible choice: recant his life's work or face the consequences. In a public ceremony, with sadness but a quiet resolve, Galileo knelt and formally renounced his belief that the sun is the center of the universe. He was forced to say he was wrong. Legend has it that as he rose to his feet, he muttered under his breath, "Eppur si muove," and yet it moves. Well, we don't know if he actually said those words. They perfectly capture the spirit of the moment. He could be forced to say the words, but no one could force him to unknow the truth. Galileo was not executed, but he was condemned. He spent the rest of his life under house arrest, a prisoner in his own home. His books were banned. He was silenced. But you can't imprison an idea. You can't put truth under house arrest. Despite his confinement and growing blindness, Galileo never stopped working. He secretly wrote another of his greatest books, laying the groundwork for the modern science of physics, and had it smuggled out of Italy for publication. Galileo died in 1642, still officially a heretic in the eyes of the Church. But his legacy was already sealed. His courage to observe, to question, and to stand by the evidence, even at great personal cost, ignited a scientific revolution. His work paved the way for Isaac Newton and all the scientists who followed. He taught us that the universe doesn't revolve around us, but that we have the power to understand it through reason and observation. It took the Church over 350 years to formally admit they were wrong and that Galileo was right. Today, we remember him not just as the father of modern science, but as a symbol of intellectual courage. His story is a powerful reminder that progress often requires challenging what we think we know. It teaches us that pursuing the truth isn't always easy or safe, but it is one of the noblest things we can do. So the next time you look up at the stars, think of Galileo. Think of the man who with a simple tube of glass tore down an old universe and revealed a new one of man, who showed us that the most powerful force in the cosmos is the human mind's relentless quest for truth. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as inspiring as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about the people who changed our world. See you next time.